But for whatever reason that you're here, I'm hoping that I can encourage you, inspire you, challenge you maybe a little bit, kind of kick things off, because you're going to get so much good information today, strategies, tips of how to really do your career search well. You know, when I was mentioning that things didn't really work out for me like I thought they would when I graduated from college, my first interview that I could get, my only interview that I could get, was for used airplane parts sales assistant. Used airplane parts sales assistant. Maybe some of you are in that fine career field. I did not know such a thing existed. Used airplane parts? So I go into the interview, and I'm freaked out because it's my first interview, but also I'm thinking through all the plane rides I've been on that have been using used airplane parts. Right? Isn't that a little nerve-wracking? I want the wing that's on my plane to be brand spanking new. I don't want any used wings on my airplane. So I'm going into the interview, and I'm trying to figure out what in the world is used airplane parts, and how am I going to help sell this stuff? You know, but you're going to an interview because, right, you need money. Because after college, you need to buy food and pay rent, and there's health insurance and car insurance, and maybe you were like me where I was kind of on my parents' bill a little bit with the car insurance thing and all that stuff. Well, all that got removed when I graduated from college, so I need money. So I'm going to this interview, and I'm doing the whole smile and nod, and yes, I've always dreamed about selling used airplane parts, please, yes, thank you. And I'm going through all these interviews. I think I did maybe 4 to 5 interviews, and I started noticing a theme with everybody I interviewed with, is they'd always talk like this. Yeah, this is a great job, a lot of upward mobility. First, if they start talking about upward mobility, watch out. That means the job you're entering into, there's only one place to go, and that's up, because you're at the rock bottom. So just beware of that. I remember being in my motel room, and I remember just laying down on one of those, floral 80s bedspreads, that probably hasn't been cleaned since, New Kids on the Block was cranking out hits, it was one of those things. I remember just laying there, and I remember crying. I'm not really a crier. Guys try not to cry, right? And especially if we do cry, we never admit it to a room full of 300 people like I'm doing right now. But I just remember crying because I just felt really alone. And I felt like everything I thought I was so sure about, it wasn't the case. And so at that moment in that hotel room, that's when I really started being passionate and really going through the process of how do you do your 20s really well. I was not doing my 20s really well. I really wanted to learn how to do that. So that moment I started writing, and I started asking people questions. I started reading books, and I started really going on a process of how do you do your 20s really well, because I needed to know. So I created a short documentary, and I'm going to show a clip of it right here to see kind of what that journey started and what things I started learning.
Scientist, lawyer, or how do you call those that put the candy in the machine?
Guy that puts candy in the machine?
Yeah.
I guess that's what you call him. I don't know.
Salesman, like the one they put the sodas in the machine.
Yeah.
Fills the machines and gets the change.
But he works a lot of hours for it.
Yeah.
But it's a good job.
Yeah. You get a lot of candy.
Yeah. I can't eat candy. I'm diabetic.
Oh no, I'm sorry.
But I learned some good things. I learned some good things from Roy. About learning really what do you want to do. You don't have to be this huge, big thing, but really, what do you want to do? You gotta really enjoy the things that are good and not worry so much about the things that are bad. Very simple stuff, but from people that had lived 90 years, it was pretty profound. So that kind of kept me going. I said, well, I want to learn more. I want to learn more about what's really going on, because as I talk to fellow 20-somethings, there's a lot of people really struggling. There's a lot of people that they don't really know what they want to do, and their path is as windy as mine. So I did my master's program, and I really started researching a theory called emerging adulthood. Basically, emerging adulthood was a research done by a guy named Jeffrey Jensen Arnett. And over the last 20 years, he's been researching this age group. And basically what emerging adults are and who they are is about 18 to 30 years old. And he was finding that 20-somethings, on average, were changing jobs almost once a year for a whole decade. The people that he was interviewing and researching, that's crazy. That's like insane crazy. And then he was finding that, when you really become an adult, when you grow into that, making independent decisions and being financially separate from your parents, that's what makes you an adult. So even the whole idea of adulthood was being redefined. He was finding, obviously, as you guys know, as a generation, as 20-somethings, globally connected, engaged. We know everything that's going on in the world. We can know about what's going on in Siberia, in 10 minutes after it happens. And yet, his research was finding that this age group was spending more time alone than any other age group other than the elderly. So it's this weird paradox of being very connected, but yet very much alone. Where you can be on Facebook and you can have, 1,500 friends, but then you really only talk to 2 people. I'm sure all 1,500 friends are really good friends, I'm sure. I have like 1,000, and I know maybe 10 of them. I don't know. I just think exploring is really you're lost on purpose with purpose. Right? Explorers choose to get lost. They choose to go where no man has gone before. But they're doing it on purpose and with purpose. So I say that because I talk to so many 24, 25-year-olds, 28-year-olds, whoever, that say, I feel so lost. I feel so lost. I don't know where to go. I don't know where to head. And I love to encourage them because I'm like, awesome, you're lost. This is great. You don't know where you're going? This is awesome because you're exploring. William Bridges, he wrote a book called Transitions, which is a really good book just about the idea of what is a transition, right? You guys are about to make a very big transition. And he talks about transitions as this, and I really like the way he puts it. He talks about a transition is you start with an ending. Most of the time we think we're transitioning, we're going into something new, right? We're going into a new beginning. He says, no, transitions really start with an ending. You're ending something. Right? And ending something can be hard. Let's think about, let's say relationships. Has anybody had a breakup in a relationship before? Raise your hand. Okay, so a few of you. Maybe you didn't want to raise your hand because that person's in this room and it's kind of awkward. Sorry about that. But right, when you break up with somebody, it's tough for the most part, unless you really didn't like that person to begin with. Then you're like, yes, I'm free. Thank you, Lord. But right, it's tough, right? It's hard. I remember breakups I had. I was crushed. The neutral zone. What is that? That sounds very academic, the neutral zone. Basically, what he describes as the neutral zone is basically a time where nothing makes any sense whatsoever, where you really have no clue. You don't know if you're going there or here or wherever, up or down. You don't know. Because, basically all the definition that you had is gone. And I think that's especially true when you've been grown up going to school and going to college and going to classes. A lot of your structure is built around, I'm going to go get a good grade. I'm going to go turn in that paper. I'm going to go give a really gee golly good presentation. And hopefully my professor will like it. I don't know why I said gee golly good. That's going back to the 50s. Flashing back to my retirement home documentary. But right, when you go into and you start working and all this, whatever, none of the life that you used to know, it doesn't really make sense. And maybe you've interned and maybe you've come to the career services and you feel really prepared. But one way or another, it's going to be a big transition. And that's normal. And that's how it's supposed to be. So if you start feeling lost, if you start feeling confused, if you start feeling like you're exploring, that's normal. A lot of people will feel that way. Some of your friends might act like they don't feel that way, but that's okay. But hopefully this just kind of gets you thinking for the rest of the event. And when you leave this place, hopefully you can sit there and say, well, I remember when a guy talked to me about this once. He was wearing that same green shirt he always wears. I remember that guy. Looking at your budget and never making a budget is the exact same thing. Don't kid yourself. It's very important to budget, right? Some of you guys are doing it already. I'm really good at making budgets. I never look at my budgets. So I had to come to grips with myself that, really that doesn't work. So that's one secret, very profound. Here's another profound one. Don't ever begin dating someone you first met whilst in swimsuits. You know what profile people care about the most on Facebook? Their own. They don't really care that much about yours. But we have this disease that's running rampant in our generation. This is huge. And really, this is a big one. When I'm talking secrets, this was hard for me, and I had to learn this the hard way. I'm not talking OCD as we think about it. I'm talking about obsessive comparison disorder. And then this just kills you. This kills you. I'm telling you, this will kill you. When you graduate and you start doing your 20s and you start going through it, if you don't have the sweet job or the sweet relationship or whatever, and you start comparing yourself with those who do, this is a real bad one. This will just totally strip your creativity, your energy, everything. It seems simple, but it's really hard. It's hard not to do. It's hard not to start comparing yourself with whoever, to jump on Facebook, to watch reality TV or wherever. We just have this propensity to compare ourselves with each other. But guess what? People are always going to be better than you. They're always going to have bigger houses. They're always going to have better jobs. They're always going to have more money. They're always going to be more beautiful. Everything. There's always going to be those people. So don't even try. Don't even go that path, because it's not a good path to go down. And a lot of people do, and it really sucks out your life. And I really see it, and I know this was for me. I was on this epic search for supposed to. I kept saying to myself, this is not the life I was supposed to live. When am I going to get that sweet job like I was supposed to? When am I going to meet that person like I was supposed to? When is life going to start working out like I was supposed to? Come on, God, seriously, what is going on? Have you forgotten about me? You changed your number? What is going on? And it took me a long time to realize this. And this is, again, very simple, but very profound. Never, never feel like it's supposed to. It won't. It won't feel like it's supposed to. Because supposed to is a lie. What is supposed to? Who made that up? Who gets to decide what your life is supposed to look like? Because guess what? It's going to change. Those cool plans that you have right now about I'm going to go do this, I'm going to be an executive by this, and I'm going to have the corner office by this, and those plans are going to change. They're going to evolve. They have to. Your plans have to change. They have to grow, because guess what? Most of the time, our plans aren't that great to begin with. Because we just look at it very logically of this is how it's going to work out. This is how it's supposed to happen. But usually you have to go through that time where your plans just kind of get ripped apart or rearranged to get a better plan, to get a new plan. So if you start thinking to yourself, if you're starting to get bummed out and say, life's not working out quite like it was supposed to, just remember, life will never be like it's supposed to. My journey through my 20s, I never thought it would take all the turns that it did. I didn't think I was going to be interviewing for a used airplane part sales assistant. When I graduated, I didn't think I was going to be crying in a hotel room. That sounds so dramatic. You know, we talk about rites of passage, like when you're in that tribal community where that guy goes out with a spear and kills some wild boar, has some vision for his life, and then comes back and he's a man. Right? We don't have those anymore, right? If you start going around, Fort Worth with that spear and like your loincloth, people are going to look at you kind of weird. But right, crappy jobs right now can sometimes be a 20-something rite of passage. Because it is tough to get a job. But even if you do, and if you get that good job, you might not be doing exactly what you think you should be doing. You might have to work your way up. You talk about paying your dues. Well, yeah, you might have to do some of that. You might not get to do all the cool things that you thought you would be doing when you signed up for the job. You might be going through that long, hard path of upward mobility. And I've had my fair share of crappy jobs. I talked about the used airplane part sales assistant, but I think one of my worst ones, well, first of all, you'll have tons of crazy interviews before you even get to the job. I once interviewed to sell meat, and I was going to drive around Hollywood, which if you've ever been to Hollywood, it's not the cool, exciting place that it looks like in the movies. It's kind of scary. Selling meat door to door, getting invited into people's houses with like a steak and saying, hey, do you want to buy this? I didn't take that job. It just freaked me out too much. I once interviewed in a back alley to be a tutor for Korean students for the SAT. And I didn't know Korean, and I didn't do well on my SAT. But I needed money, so I was interviewing and I'm in some back alley, and I remember thinking, oh Lord, what am I doing here? I really hope I don't get this job. But one job I did take was working at a call center. It was at a cool company, one of those companies you like putting your name on, but I was working at a call center, receiving inbound calls. And usually that person was on hold for an hour before they got to me because we were understaffed. And I don't know about you, but do you call companies, do you call a call center just to tell them how good of a job they're doing? Right? We don't do that. So I would press my phone on at 7 a.m., and when I press that on button, it would be ringing because somebody's waiting there for an hour for me to press that button. And it was somebody from New York who was very angry about their problem with their account. And for 8 hours a day, I got cussed at, I got yelled at, I got blamed for everything for that I didn't have any control over. And I remember just walking outside on my breaks for 15 minutes, that you get your timed 15-minute breaks, and then you have to log back on the phone to take that next call. I remember just thinking, please, Lord, this is not what my life is supposed to be, right? But I remember right then and there that I really had to learn some really good things, and that's what crappy jobs can teach you. I had to learn about just showing up and doing good work. And I learned the secret that really sometimes doing your 20s really well is nothing more than just patient everydayness. And what's everydayness? It's showing up every day. It's realizing that life is not built on these billboard moments, that life is not going to be this made-for-TV movie. You're not living a Hallmark movie. I'm not either. So the guy starts walking around the store, later, and I start watching him. And I kind of start seeing what it is. People are stopping him left and right. Chad, come over here. Chad, come over here. I'm like, everybody, he could run for mayor. I've met the mayor of Starbucks. I'm like, this is nuts. But I can see why. He's looking at them in the eyes, and he's engaging them, and he's asking them questions. He's asking about their kids. He's doing all this stuff. And he's really there. He's engaged. And I'm like, what is with this guy? And he's not a spring chicken. He's like young 30s. He's old, like me. And I'm like, what is this guy's story? So I start thinking up this guy's story, right? I'm a writer. We imagine things. We think up things. So I start, maybe this guy had a great job. He was like selling homes, making some pretty good money. But then the Great Recession came and just blew it all apart. Maybe he had a boss that was terrible and stole money from him. So he got in a lot of debt, and he just had to start over. He had to get any job he could. And this guy, maybe he had to live back with his parents at 30. Oh yeah, that would be good. He had to live in the basement of his parents' house. And now he's at Starbucks working. I'm like, oh yeah, this is a good story. And then I'm noticing the guy, and the guy's kind of limping. And I'm like, the guy, he has one leg. The guy has one leg. This is too crazy. He must have one leg. It was a shark attack. And now he's living with his parents. And he's 30, and he's making it at Starbucks, but he's engaging people, and they love him. This is a Hallmark movie. I would pay to see this Hallmark movie, right? And I'm thinking about all this, and then I realize that every one of those details is true because the guy's my brother. The Starbucks guy, he's my brother. And I've never seen him working at a Starbucks before. It was my first time. And I'm watching him after all those details. He has one leg, literally. He was born without a leg. The Great Recession just blew his life apart. He had to start over, living in my parents' house in the basement. I know every day he does not want to be at Starbucks working there. So that's why it just blew my life apart to see him and see people waiting to talk to him because he is there. He's working his crappy job that he doesn't like, but he is learning from it. His job, we're so worried about, and this is me, I'm so worried about being in the wrong job when I never think about, is my job getting the wrong me? I think, we live such safe lives, we want to get that good grade on the test and all these things, but I really learned the hard way is that the only failure of our 20s would be if we never had any, right? If you don't have some failures in your 20s, you're probably not doing your 20s that well. You'll really know when you're passionate about something when it goes completely wrong and you pick yourself up the next day and you keep at it. You keep doing it. So for me, at 22, I started writing a book. At 23, I was really passionate about helping 20-somethings, even though I really didn't have a clue. I ended up getting a literary agent, a good literary agent. It's tough to get an agent. Got a good agent. Started going to publishers at 25. So I'm like, this is it. I'm going to make it. I'm going to publishers at 25. I have my first book out. I'm going to be doing speaking engagements, all this stuff. I'm totally there. And now I'm 29, and my first book's going to come out. So I started going to publishers at 25, and now I'm 29. So I'm no math major, but that's a long freaking time to be working on one book. But I really learned the hard way. You'll figure out if you're passionate about something really quickly once that failure starts to kick in. Because I had a lot of other ideas I pursued that failed, and I just let it go. That wasn't me. I was doing it for the wrong reasons. Right? Like at one point, I really did get a great internship. I was working at CBS Sports in the broadcasting department because I was going to be a sports anchor. I grew up watching ESPN. I was going to be a sports anchor. And things weren't really going that well. I really didn't like it. I started showing up to work and I felt sick. And I started really learning that I wasn't there for the right reasons. I wanted to be a sports anchor so I could be on TV and say, yeah, what's up? I'm on TV, friends. What's up with that? It wasn't the right reason. So once it failed, I just let it go because that wasn't it. It wasn't my passion. You'll know when you're passionate about something when it doesn't work out and you keep getting up at 5 a.m. to do it every day. Even when nobody cares. Even when you don't get any accolades or good grades or anything for it, you keep showing up. That's when you know you're passionate about something. And guess what? That's tough. Because, right, that means things didn't go well. And they won't at times. But failure is the best clarifier. Failure is the best clarifier. It will clarify things for you in your life. Will you have the courage to just get words down on paper? You know, it doesn't have to be perfect. The story might not flow exactly how you thought it would. But will you have the courage to keep showing up and putting words down on paper to write that crappy first draft? Because maybe you have to write 50 pages, and then you get to page 51, and you're like, oh my gosh, that's it. Page 51, that's the story. That's it, that's the whole thing. But you had to write 50 pages to get to page 51. That was the only way to get there. But if you're doing that, I swear you're going to have some good stuff to edit later. Because again, like I was talking about, that passion doesn't come out just like that. Sometimes you just got to get the words down on paper so that you can go in and you can start editing it. And you can start figuring out where really is the story. You can't have a good story without some good struggle. That's part of the narrative. Because really, it's about figuring out what's your why. And really, I think of the why as different categories. It's your strengths. It's your values. It's what makes you excited. It's where the opportunities are. All these different things start forming your why. Why are you going to show up every day? And if you can start figuring that out, clarifying that, you can start asking yourself, what are my strengths? What are my values? What do I really value in life? What gets me excited? If you think back to stories in your own life, things that you were like, this is one of my biggest successes, what were you really doing? What were you doing when you were really successful? Were you leading? Were you writing? Were you crunching data? Were you whatever? What were you really doing? What was the core of that? That's part of your why. That's part of who you are. If you can start figuring out your why, now if you can start asking those questions, it'll make the process simpler and easier and smoother. You'll start getting to your passion quicker. Because I totally agree. I think we should be doing something we're passionate about. I don't think it's just a cliche. I think it's really great. I think it's awesome when people are doing something they're pumped about doing because it gives you that extra energy to go over crazy big obstacles that you couldn't have done without it. But they've figured out their why. They figured out, why am I doing this? And it's usually not for accolades or money or prestige. It's for something deeper than that. That's what keeps people going. So start asking yourself, what's my why? Because the possibility for greatness and embarrassment both exist in the same space. They have to. You cannot do anything great in this life if you're not willing to be completely embarrassed while you do it. But Lincoln didn't just become president overnight, right? His whole 20s was literally one big failure. He ran for office numerous times and lost. He proposed to women that turned them down. His 20s were not that successful. But he was putting himself out there. He was willing to get embarrassed. He was willing to go for it, and he was learning. He was writing that crappy first draft. And then he wrote and told one of the most profound stories in American history. But he had to learn some profound truths while he was going through the hard things. I was at a 4th of July picnic. It was at some park, and I heard music across the way, and I rode my bike over there. I was like 25, 26, and I show up, and it's like this concert in a park. There's a lot of people there, probably like 1,000, 2,000 people at this park. And it was like a Beach Boys cover band, which I don't even know if you guys know who the Beach Boys is. It was before my time too. So I'm sitting there and I'm listening, and the crowd is kind of far away from the stage, and I'm sitting close to the stage. And they finish the song, and then they say, hey, this is our last song. And for our last song, we're giving away this free Les Paul electric guitar. We're giving it away for free. All you got to do is be one of the first 5 people to get up here, and you got to play air guitar on stage, and whoever does the best air guitar gets this free guitar, right? And I am right there next to stage. I literally have like a 50-yard head start on everybody. And I'm like, oh my gosh, a free electric guitar. How cool would it be? I rode my bike away, and then I come back to my family, and I'm carrying this like free, sweet electric guitar. I'm like, this is going to be epic. This is going to be great. This is going to be such a cool story. But it never happened. Because as I was looking at the crowd, and I was looking at the stage, thousands of people, air guitar, I'm like, nah, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to embarrass myself on stage, no. And so I kind of sauntered over there, and I kind of got there late, and they already picked their 5, and I'm like, okay, great, I'm not going to do it. And then I'm sitting there, and I'm watching these 5 people go, and they all did such a terrible job. They were all so embarrassed. They did a terrible job. They were not fun. Nobody, it was not engaging, nothing. And I remember sitting there thinking, I could have won that guitar. I could have done that. I could have gone for it. I could have won it. But I remember thinking to myself, they don't give the free guitar to the guy out in the crowd that swore he could have done it better. They don't give the free guitar to the guy out in the crowd that swore he could have done it better than the guy on stage. They don't give that free guitar to that person. You have to get up on stage. You have to go for it. You have to risk. The biggest risk of your 20s, of your life, is not taking any risks at all. You have to be up there. And so as you go out from here, as things begin to look a little confusing, lost, maybe they look great right away, I just encourage you to take those risks, to be willing to be embarrassed, to be willing to fail, but fail well, and learn from it, and grow, because you're on your path to finding your passion. You're writing that crappy first draft. And I promise you, the story that you're going to end up telling is going to be awesome. This is a really, really exciting, nerve-wracking, fun time of your lives. I'm so pumped for you guys. I'm excited for the guitars that you guys are going to win because you're willing to get up on stage. So our 20s really are about setting the table more than they're about enjoying the feast, so that you can be ready for when that sweet food starts coming. That's what really your 20s are about. So if you're not getting that banquet right away, that's okay. You're setting the table, and that's great. Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it.